Shalom Lekulam. Shalom everyone. Welcome. Today we're going to continue discussing the difference or the distinction between a nes, a miracle, and kishuf, sorcery or magic. This is lesson number 5. And we're going to be discussing medium summoning and the Urim VeTumim that the Kohen Gadol used to use in his breastplate in order to contact or to use it as an oracle to know what's the will of the Creator. And we're going to see the difference between trying to know what is the best answer for the future or for clarity, in this case, as what the Kohen Gadol used to use it, and the difference between contacting spirit, demons, disembodied spirits, and things like that. And we're going to see that even though in modern times we don't have the temple in which we can connect to the Kohen Gadol and the Urim VeTumim directly like we used to, we still have ways to connect to that force, to that light. And as we're going to see, it's going to be through Torah, prayer, and also the Ruach HaKodesh, which we have covered in previous lesson. And you're going to see that this lesson is going to overlap with the previous lesson, since we're going to be talking about calling the death, the spirits, in order to know about the future and things like that. So please join us after the introduction so we can start the lesson, and I'll see you after that. Welcome back. As I mentioned before, this lesson is going to overlap a little bit with the previous lesson, in which we were talking about necromancy, spirit mediums, and Dorish El Hamitim, talking to the deaf and things like that. So you're gonna see that this is part of it, because mediumship, what they do is they channel these energies, and as we're gonna see, these energies come from what is called the husk or the kelipot, the dark side of the system of creation. But let's have a little bit of history of where spirit mediumship practices come from, when they were practiced and things like that, from back then in history into modern times. So in the ancient Near East, we're going to see that in Mesopotamia and Canaan, mediums and necromancers were believed to contact the dead or divine spirit for guidance. However, this type of practice in the Bible, in the Tanakh, specifically in 1 Samuel chapter 28, verses 7 to 25, we're going to see the story of the witch of Endor. And that story records the practices that were done back then during those times. However, when we go to the Torah, in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 10 to 12, we're going to see that these practices are totally prohibited within the Israelites. These practices are marked as belonging to the Tumah side rather than the holiness, from the unholy side. Then if we move forward in history, we're going to see that in classical antiquity in Greece, we're going to see oracles like the Oracle of Delphi, which we know, it was mostly an oracle in which is very famous still these days for people to visit it. But back then there was this oracle in which people used to go there and ask for wisdom, as they call it, or answers to certain questions about life. And what happened was that there was a kind of like a prophetess in there, a female prophet that would get into a trance, and this trance was actually created by the gas that was emanated from a cave nearby. So what we see is that through that trance, she will contact the divinity of their pantheon, right? And then give answers. These priestesses or female prophets, when they enter into that trance, they will receive those messages and then give it to the people. And it was said to be so accurate that it got so famous and became a place that people were actually go to, even if it wasn't for any kind of use of the oracle itself. It was most for worship. In Rome, we have what is called necromancy, who what they used to do was to summon the ancestral spirits. So they would call the spirits of their ancestors in order to gain clarity or know about the future. These practices in these places were mixed with astrology, divination, and ritual in order to enter the trance that they needed in order to contact the spirits. In medieval history and early modern Europe, spirit contact was linked to witchcraft, and it was condemned by the Catholic Church. Still, you have the folk healers and shamans in rural Europe. However, there were even with the power of the church, there were still continued forms of ancestral invocation and spirit consultation. And these practices, when we go to modern era, we're gonna see that they are brought from Europe to the Americas and then mixed with the American Indian culture. And then in modern time, it's being mixed with different cultures from Asia, India, and things like that. But back then, medieval and early modern Europe, we're also going to see that Kabbalah distinguished between prophetic inspiration, which is holy, and mediumship. And Kabbalah started, or books and manuscripts were starting to be written in order to separate these two things, so people won't think that they're one and the same. Now, in the 19th and 20th century, we're gonna see what is called the time of spiritualism. The spiritualist movement in America and Europe was popularized by seances, table rapping, and mediums who claimed that they would channel the dead. So we're gonna see people sitting around a table and concentrating and doing prayers and rituals in order to contact the dead. And if you do your research, you're gonna see that they were taking pictures of supposedly ectoplasm and things like that was coming out of these mediums and all that, which all turned out to be trickery. It wasn't real. And there were figures like the Fox sisters. If you Google that, it's going to be very famous. The Fox sisters in New York in the 1848, they trigger a widespread fascination with spirit communication. And in history, actually, when you look at the history of these two sisters, you're going to see that there was some kind of trickery there. There were some lies as well in there. And there's a reason for that. They might be contacting the dead, and sometimes they will. sometimes the dead won't talk through them, but will use them anyways, to destroy their lives. And sometimes, it's really hard to get out of this type of lies, right? When you lie, you have to lie to cover the lie, and you continue lying, right? So this spiritual movement of this era gave rise to professional mediums and occult societies. So we're going to see then that we're going to have a Theosophical Society. The Rosicrucians become more famous around that time as well. We're going to see that a lot of these people also belong to the Masons. And we're going to see also, that eventually these start evolving through the years until modern times, in which we're going to see that mediumship today is found in spiritualist churches. We're going to see them we're going to find this kind of mediumship also in New Age circles. We're going to find them in folk traditions such as Santeria, Candomblé. This is Afro-Caribbean religions, in which the slaves that were brought to the Americas, they cover their gods and spirits by using saints of the Catholic Church. And in this way, they will worship, these spirits or these gods. And we're going to find that also that we're going to see, even in TV, it's been very famous, some people that claim to be mediums or have mediumship skills. We're going to see psychics and channelers often present their practices as spiritual guidance through many faiths. And this includes Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism. But these religions like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they forbid it. They forbid these type of practices. So, and we're going to see why this is forbidden, and not only in religion. We know that religion tends to be sometimes dogmatic, right? But why Kabbalah forbids a person that is looking to connect with the light and the Creator? Why Kabbalah forbids this as well? And the reason is the following. The source of power of these type of practices like mediumship draws from the Achoraim, the backside of the Sephirot, particularly from Mahut's fallen residue, the other side, which is called the Sitra Achra. It is a parasitic, feeding and fragmented light of the divine that have been exiled into the excess, into the exile into the kelipot, and it was like that fell down to this dark side, which is called the Mador Kelipot, the place of the kelipot, when the Shevirat HaKalim happened, when the breaking of the vessels happened. And I'm not going to explain, here all the process of how that happened, but if you study the Shevirat HaKalim, which I'm going to make a video of that it's been a request from one of the students to clarify how, if it says a malachim, why there's only 7 mentioned that died, but it says 8 that died. So where's the contradiction between the 8 malachim and 7 malachim that the Kabbalah talk? And we're going to talk about that. But in the meantime, just note that there's a top part of a parsuf, called Gargalta Enaim, and it's basically the skull and the eyes. And then there's the Ahab, which is the Ahab is basically Osen, Hoten, Pe, which is mouth, nose, and ears. And if you look at it, I'm using, the human face, but in reality, Kabbalah uses that in order to make a person, understand spirituality better. But just think that the top part, eyes and skull, is the most pure part, and the rest is impure and to a certain level. It has more desire to receive than the top part. So the bottom part broke, and that bottom part fell into what is called the place of the kelipot. And all the parts of thing, all these Sefirot configurations that we have, like Abba, Ima, Zerampin, and Nukva, which is Mahud, they went through this process. But we're gonna see that it's from Tiferet down that the breaking happened, and this is where the confusion is, because we have 7 Sefirot that broke, right? But it says 8 Malachim, so it's a 7 or 8, and it's because there's something called Da'at, and Da'at is Abba, actually Israel's Abba Betebuna, which is another Parsufin that was created. It's called Da'at, right? And also that one broke. So we're gonna see that, when we study the breaking of the vessel. And then, these lights, the Nitzosot, these sparks, fell down, and this is the light that is trapped down there, and this is where these forces actually feed from. Now, the mechanism that is used in mediumship, the medium manipulates impure channels through ritual, trance, or magic to force, very important, they force a connection with wandering souls or unclean spirits. The nature of communication is usually the following: the message is distorted, partial, and sometimes it's deceptive, because the light comes through screens of judgment, which are, dinim, and concealment. And sometimes the spirits don't want to be disturbed at all. So you're going to be dealing with angry forces, right? Forces that are not going to be playing with you in a favorable way. They're going to be playing against you. Now, we know in Kabbalah that the spiritual status of these type of practices is forbidden. Why? Because Kabbalah bases all its teachings on the Torah, right? So the Torah in Deuteronomy chapter 10, verses 10-12 says that it is forbidden because it involves lowering consciousness into impurity, binding oneself to forces of death instead of forces of life. Remember that the Torah also said that God says, that He has created life and death, right? Good and evil, and He tells you to choose life for a reason. Now, the Kabbalistic understanding is that mediumship bypasses the orderly flow of divine light. It hijacks sparks in the kelipot, these nitzosot that are trapped in there. This leaves the person spiritually damaged and bound to the sitra achra. And that's why it's so hard to get out of these things. And you have to go through a process of extensive purifications if you start connecting to these forces, because sometimes they cling to you. They become, as we talk in all the lessons, sometimes they become a dibuk, basically a spirit possession. They start possessing the person. Now, we're going to see that then what we're going to have is on the other side of the spectrum, something called the Urim VeTumim. And we're going to find some references in the Torah and in the writings about the Urim VeTumim, but specifically in Exodus 28, verses 28-30, where it says, the breastpiece shall be held in place by a cord of blue from its ring to the ring of the ephod, so that the breastpiece rests on the decorated band and does not come loose from the ephod. Aaron shall carry the names of the sons of Israel on the breastpiece of decision over his heart, when he enters the sanctuary for remembrance before God at all times. Inside the breastpiece of decision you shall place the Urim and Tumim, so that they are over Aaron's heart when he comes before God. Thus Aaron shall carry the instruments of decision for the Israel over his heart before God at all times. So we see the instructions of how to carry this instrument, this oracle, on, the high priest garments. So a short history of the Urim VeTumim. The Urim VeTumim first appear in the Torah as part of the what is called the Choshen Mishpat, breastplate of judgment, worn by the Kohen Gadol, as we just read. They were placed inside the breastplate, inscribed with the names of the tribe of Israel. Through them, the high priest would receive divine answers to national questions of war, leadership, or direction. The letters engraved on the stones will shine to reveal God's guidance. So it's very interesting because what we have here is ancient technology, right? An oracle that actually will make stones shine. What makes you think what kind of technology they were using, right? Was it spiritual technology, or was it technology that was revealed to them by the upper realm? In the first temple period, and according to the Talmud in Yoma 21b, the Urim VeTumim were fully functional in the first temple. They require both a physical breastplate and the presence of the Ruach HaKodesh, the divine inspiration, the Holy Spirit. And this Ruach HaKodesh will work through the Kohen Gadol in order to make this Urim VeTumim work. The Urim VeTumim symbolize a channel where the Shechinah spoke through the sanctified vessel of Israel. Now, when we look at the second temple, the physical breastplate still existed, but the Urim and Tumim did not function. The Talmud explained that the Holy Spirit had diminished, and though the vessels were present, their power of illumination was gone. This marked the decline of direct divine communication, preparing the way for rabbinic leadership through Torah interpretation instead. So for now, what we're going to see is people will rely on the rabbi's guidance instead of using the Urim VeTumim as a mode of connection and asking for clarity in life. After the temple and in exile, what we have is that after the temple's destruction, the Urim VeTumim were hidden and are lost. Their exact nature became a mystery. However, Kabbalah teaches that their spiritual root remains above, but concealed within the Shechinah in exile. Their light is destined to return with the rebuilding of the temple, the Beit HaMikdash, in the Messianic era. And this is according to Ramban when he talks about the verses that we read, Exodus 28:30. Now, what is the significance of the name Urim and Tumim, right? So Urim comes from the word or, means lights, represent divine illumination flowing from Chokmah, wisdom. Tumim means perfections, signifying truth and completion from Bina, sealing the message. Together they embody the harmony of heavenly wisdom and earthly justice. So in order for any vessel below Bina to receive the light of wisdom, the light of creation, it needs to be surrounded, it needs to be clothed by what we call the Or Hasidim, the light of mercy. And what Bina does, it restricts the light of wisdom. The light of wisdom is very expansive, it can destroy, as we talked in the beginning about the Shavirat HaKalim. So it needs to be restricted and only be used according to the needs of the vessel. If it's used in an egoistic way, it will destroy the vessel, right? So the Urim VeTumim was basically a way in which this connection with creation and access to the information of creation was basically restricted in order for the Kohen Gadol to understand it without him being basically killed, right? Or his spirit broken, or who knows what else. So this is what it was happening. It was Urim VeTumim was basically a channel through where that light will come in, and then it will give guidance to the people of Israel. Now in exile, their echo is found in the Torah letters, in the clarity of Ruach HaKodesh, Holy Spirit, and in the illumination that comes through sincere prayer and connection to the Shechinah. So what we can see is that the Urim VeTumim began as a sacred prophetic device with the Kohen Gadol's breastplate. And it functioned fully in the first temple, but it became inactive in the second temple. And now that we're in exile, it remains hidden. We don't know what happened with it, but we can connect with it. Kabbalistically, we still can connect to it. They are a channel of divine light whose spiritual root continues to guide Israel in concealed ways until they're fully restored again in the future, in the Messianic age. So what is the source of power of the Urim VeTumim? It is direct illumination from the Shechinah in Malchut. Remember, wisdom and Bina, Chokmah and Bina. With the light of wisdom comes through the restriction of Bina and illuminates Serampin, which Serampin then gives to Malchut. And is a direct illumination from the Shechinah in Malchut as it is unified with Tiferet, right? Serampin. The high priest wore the Choshen, the breastplate, over the heart, engraved with the holy names of the tribes. These letters became vessels for divine speech. The mechanism was that the Kohen Gadol will focus on the Vekut, cleaving to the Creator while standing in holiness, and the Shechinah will shine through the stones. Certain letters on the breastplate will light up to spell out a divine message. The nature of communication was pure, orderly, and entirely truthful. It wasn't a ghostly voice or a trance, but illumination from the living God channeled through these sacred vessels. Now, the spiritual status was that it was a mitzvah, a prophetic tool, not man forcing heaven, but heaven descending to man through holy vessels consecrated for that very purpose. The Cabalistic understanding of this is that the Urim, which comes from the word or light, drew from Chokmah light, which is the light of wisdom, shining in through Malchut. And as I mentioned before, it was through Bina, to this restriction of Bina, that then this light of wisdom will illuminate Serampin, Tiferet, and connect to Malchut, while the Tumim, which come from the word Tam, completion or perfection, signifies the sealing of truth in Bina. Together they unify upper and lower realm to reveal divine guidance. So this is something that we're going to be talking also when we talk about the breaking of the vessels, that when there's an ascension of the Ahab, this is called basically the Main Nukvin, the prayer, the feminine waters. When these lower vessels go up, they create something called panim bepanim between Abba ve'Ima, which is Chokmah and Bina. And what it means is that now Chokmah and Bina see face to face, and Chokmah can give to Bina, and Bina can give to these lower vessels. So this is something that the Urim VeTumim was actually doing as well. It was working with this system of ascension of these vessels of in a form of feminine water or prayer. Now, The essential difference, as we can see, is that the medium summoning is from the bottom up, impure, coercive, and drawing life from death. The Urim VeTumim, on the other hand, is from top down, holy, receptive, channeling life from the living source. So what we see is that mediumship is grabbing from the shadows of the back, the Ahoraim, while the Urim VeTumim is receiving from the face of God, right? When it comes like face to face. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Urim VeTumim, how we can connect to the Urim VeTumim, right? But first, let's read, some of our sources here so we can have an idea. So the Urim VeTumim has been mentioned throughout time, right? And what we're gonna read now is the sources from the Tanakh and Chazal, right, or sages. Exodus 28:30, which we already read, right? But it talks about command to place the Urim VeTumim into the Hoshen, showing Israel as a channel of divine communication. In Talmud Yoma, what we're going to see is that there's an explanation how the Urim VeTumim worked. The letters lit up, and the Kohen Gadol needs the Ruach HaKodesh to interpret this message, right? Now, in Yoma, again in the Talmud, also states that the Urim VeTumim existed in the second temple, but did not function due to lack of Ruach HaKodesh. Then the Rishonim, Ramban, explains that the Urim VeTumim contain a sacred name of God placed inside the breastplate. Through it, divine light will shine and letters will illuminate. He asks that their return is a promise for the Messianic era. So these are the things that we cover, so that way you know where I talked about where this information is coming from. Rashi mentions the following, says that what Rashi does is connects them directly to illumination, Urim, and truth, Tumim, implying that they are a perfected vessel of divine guidance. And Radak says, or contrast prophecy, Urim VeTumim with necromancy, showing in the Torah distinction between holy and forbidden channels of knowledge. And this is what I'm trying to explain here. Now, the Zohar, when we read Zohar Perkudei, verses 268 on the Sulam commentary, it says, "It is written, and you shall put in the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Tumim." It was explained that the meaning of Urim, lights, is that they illuminate in the secret of the shining mirror, namely Serampin. And this is the engravings of the letters of the holy name in the secret of 42 with which the worlds were created. The letters were sunken into it. The Tumim refers to the secret of the letters contained in the mirror, which does not shine, which is Malchut, shining with the 72 engraved letters in the secret of the holy name. The name of 72 is the secret of revealing the light of Chokmah that is within Malchut. Together they are called Urim and Tumim. So here's giving you a secret, basically saying, the 42 letter name of God and the 72 engraved letters, right? The name of 72 are basically these Urim VeTumim that we can connect these days. This is something that is very important. And remember, here saying the name of 72, it doesn't say the 72 names. So don't confuse this one with 72 names of God that we have out there. This is our name of God that has 72 letters. okay? And there's a name of God that have 42 letters, which we know. It's through the Anabekoach, okay? Now, if you want to go deeper into this type of connection with the Urim VeTumim, I suggest that you study Zohar per Kudei from the Sulam commentary, verses 172 to verse 212. This is Zohar per Kudei, chapter 21. In there, the Zohar discusses the 12 stones of the breastplate with inscriptions of the names of the tribe and relates them to the 12 supernal tribes above. It also says that the 12 supernal stones are the secrets of the Torah, thus making a symbolic linkage between the Torah secrets and the stone letters on the breastplate. So if you read that after this lesson, that will help you also get more information as well, especially from the Zohar. Even if you don't understand, you will get something from it, and this illumination that you might not perceive right away, but it's working. It's something that is gonna open up your consciousness. So how can we connect in modern times with the Urim VeTumim? We can do it through Torah and Chotmat HaEmet, inner wisdom. The letters engraved on the breastplate symbolize the Torah's letters. Just as the high priest received answers through the shining of the letters, we can receive clarity through immersing in Torah study, especially the inner wisdom, Kabbalah, and the secrets of Torah, right? The Zohar says that the Torah is clothed in letters, but within it is pure light. This light is parallel to the Urim part of the Urim VeTumim. Also, through Ruach HaKodesh and prophetic sparks. In Talmud Yoma, which we saw, right? It says that the Urim Tumim worked only when the Kohen Gadol was filled with the Ruach HaKodesh. Today we don't have prophecy, but sparks of Ruach HaKodesh can be felt in moments of deep connection, the Bekut, prayer, or inspiration from words from a tzaddik. When one's heart is purified, clarity of truth, which is called tumim, arises as inner certainty, and this is an echo or a kind of connection with the Urim and Tumim. We also can connect through the 12 tribes within the soul. The Hoshen represented the 12 tribes. Each tribe is a spiritual archetype within us. The letters that were basically illuminated signify the harmonization of our inner qualities when aligned with God's will. Also, by meditating on the tribes, their names, and their stones is a way of drawing light into the Urim and Tumim and into the world as well. Also, we can connect through prayer and the Shechinah. The Urim VeTumim was essentially the voice of Shechinah speaking through Malchut. Today, when we pray sincerely, we are standing in place of the Kohen Gadol before the divine presence. In this way, prayer with Kavanah, the proper intent, becomes the substitute vessel for receiving guidance like a hidden Urim Tumim in our hearts. Also through the Tzaddik and collective Israel. And when I say collective Israel, I'm talking about not Jewish people only. We're talking about people that are trying to connect directly with the Creator. Those who study Kabbalah and are doing it in a sincere way, they're considered part of the spiritual Israel. So it's a collective Israel. It's a collective Israel, the physical and the spiritual Israel, right? By those that have joined this force called Israel. In Hasidic thought, the Tzaddik is like the Kohen Gadol of the generation, a living breastplate carrying the souls of Israel before God. So that's why they love so much the Rebbe. That's why they always, are in connection with the Rebbe, because they think, he's basically his representation of this force. However, you don't have to belong to the Hasidic movement or any movement at all, in order to connect to Tzaddik. When we connect to a Tzaddik's Torah, and we study, the books of these souls that came to Earth or still here in planet Earth, or to the collective soul of Israel through unity, right? When we unite, when we start loving the people that are considered to be part of Israel as we love ourselves, we connect to the same channel of illumination of the Urim VeTumim. So practicing these things will help us connect to this force that is an energy that is hidden from us in these modern times. So the Urim VeTumim has gone into exile with the Shechinah. We cannot access it physically, but its roots, its shoresh, shines in the letters of the Torah, in Ruach HaKodesh that comes through prayer and the Bekut, and in the inner light of the soul when it's purified. Now, let's do some recap of the things that differentiate the medium summoning, the Urim VeTumim, and the modern connection. And as you can see, I spend a lot of time talking about the Urim VeTumim because I think it's the most important part of this lesson is for us to learn how to connect to this force, to this energy, to this technology of the soul that we have out there. So let me get laser point here. Okay. So medium summoning, what we're going to have is in Cabalistic term draws from the Ahoraim, the backside of Malchut, the Sitra, and the kelipot, right? While the Urim VeTumim flows from Panim of Malchut united with Tiferet, right? This is where we talk about the energy flow that comes from Chokmah, Bina, when they're face to face, and Serampin receives and gives to Malchut, and Malchut then transmit that information through the Urim VeTumim. Now, the modern connection is hidden shoresh of Urim VeTumim shines in Torah letters, prayer, and Ruach HaKodesh. The source of energy is from the fragmented spark trap in impurity in the kelipot. The Urim VeTumim, however, the source is from the Shechinah dwelling on the Hoshen, divine line of Chokmah illuminating Malchut. Now, in modern times, we can connect through Torah study, especially Sod, Kabbalah, heartfelt prayer, inner illumination through the Bekut, and also by studying the Torah of the Tzaddikim. What is the status in Torah? It's strictly forbidden to be a medium, right? To contact the dead or spirits. However, the Urim VeTumim is commanded by the Torah. It's a commanded practice for the Kohen Gadol to inquire, of Hashem. In modern times, no physical mizbah because we don't have a temple and the Urim VeTumim has been hidden from us. But elevated practices of Torah and prayer are its spiritual continuation. The mode of operation of a medium summoning is coercive summoning, distorted voices of spirits, truth mixed with lies. However, in the Urim VeTumim, the mode of operation is letter of tribal names lit up with divine light. The Kohen Gadol received Ruach HaKodesh, and the message is given. In modern times, we don't have the Urim VeTumim, right? But we have the letter of the Torah shine in our hearts, flashes of clarity in learning, prayer, or inspiration. The spiritual effect of medium summoning is defilement, bondage to impure forces, obscure truth, while with the Urim VeTumim back then, it was pure divine guidance, unification with Israel and of Israel with God's will. In modern times, we're gonna see that this connection with the Urim VeTumim is it will create inner guidance, clarity, connection, the Bekut, illumination of the soul from the hidden Shechinah. The symbolism of medium summoning is death, the kelipot husk, and the shadow side. Urim VeTumim, on the other hand, is living light, divine face revealed. In modern times, is considered Urim VeTumim is considered hidden light, exile with the Shechinah, but is accessible through holiness. The modern connection, and this is according to Kabbalah and some religions, right, especially Judaism and Christianity, is prohibited. In modern times, the Urim VeTumim is lost with the temple. But in modern times, we still can connect to the forces of the Urim VeTumim through Torah letters as living Urim, prayer as the breastplate of the heart, Ruach HaKodesh sparks, unity with Tzaddikim, and the people of Israel. I'm Israel. So in short, mediumship comes from the backside. Kelipot is impure and forbidden. The Urim VeTumim in temple times was the face of the Shechinah, holy guidance. Then the Urim VeTumim in modern times is hidden, but its hidden roots shine through Torah, prayer, and Ruach HaKodesh. I hope this lesson has actually helped you clarify some concepts that probably not a lot of people talk about. I decided to talk about this, as I mentioned in my other lesson. I decided to talk about this this type of concepts of knowing the difference between miracles and magic or sorcery, because when I was doing the research of my recent book, which is called The Secrets of the Prayer of Anna Bekoach and the 42 letter names of God, I found a lot of things that were kind of like borderline with these things. And there are even some Jewish books and Kabbalah books that use the names of God in order to do harm to enemies and things like that. And that is considered magic, right? So we're gonna see, if you really study, mysticism, Jewish mysticism, really in depth, that there's magic within some of the Cabalistic traditions that is borderline or is basically forbidden. And it's practices also that were adopted from the Babylonian times, practices that were adopted also from when the Israelites went to exile and went to these different cultures. They adopted certain things from their cultures. So we're gonna see there's a lot of things that are considered like Kabbalah. I hear a lot of people talking about, don't do this, don't drink water this way, don't put your shoes in certain ways and things like that. It's like God doesn't care about that. What God actually cares about your heart, right? And that's what Kabbalah is trying to teach, right? It's not about how you do things, it's about the inner work that you need to create. And that's what creates miracles. We're not here to make things happen. We're here to basically be channels of the light and let the light make things happen. We cannot be forcing things. We need to be channels that will help the light create things, make miracles in life, right? And in that way, we also become a miracle. So I invite you, to take a look at the book. If you cannot afford the book, just let me know. It's kind of like expensive because of things are getting expensive, for people that are self publishing. So, but if you have problems, getting the book because it's expensive, let me know. Just let me know. I may do something. But it's very important to understand the difference. One of the things, that when I was doing the research and studying the 42 letter name of God, was that also people pick names especially with the 72 names of God. They pick names and they think by using this name and having this name in a portrait or something like that, that name is going to create things. And in reality, it's not. Just by having some physical thing, just like the talisman, right? Just by having a talisman, just by having a physical thing with the name of God, it's not going to do anything. It's what kind of process are you having in your psychological, what kind of psychological process, what kind of mental process and spiritual process you're having when you're looking at that. Because that thing doesn't have power, right? What has power is the meaning behind it. What kind of representation of the spiritual system that actually mean. Because we're just drawing letters, but each letter is a representation of something in the spiritual. But if we don't know the meaning of each letter, we don't know what it is all about, we cannot connect to that. It doesn't become a constant prayer. And that's the difference. It's not the name itself, it's how we connect to the idea, to the archetype, to the forces that are behind it. And that's how these things work. However, there's people, as you're going to see in Hermetic Kabbalah and other magical circles, in which they even use names of God. They borrow these from Kabbalah and they put it in their rituals in order to force things to happen. And things may happen, but what they're doing is that they're connecting to the dark side of the system. And even though in their mind they think, so, this name is so powerful and everything, remember, for every name of God, there's a dark side as well. So there's a mirror system, kind of like a parallel universe, one of light, one of darkness. And just because you're connecting to what you might call the Keter of the Tree of Life in order to do magic, does not mean you're connecting to the Keter of Kedusha, of holiness. You might be connecting to the Keter of Tumah, on holiness, right? So these are things that you gotta keep in mind, and this is why I'm making this, so you can see the distinction between them. What is the source? What kind of damage can it cause to you, and things like that. So when you look at the names of God, the 72 names of God, the 42-letter name of God, the Anabekoach, and things like that, you can see this in a different light and know the difference between what you can do when you become a vessel of transmission of the light, or when you become a vessel of selfishness in which you want to receive the light just for yourself, and this is what it is all about. So I hope these lessons have actually helped a few people or a lot of people, know the difference. As they say, even one person that is happy about the lesson, mission accomplished, right? So I hope that at least one person, I know it's many because I receive a lot of emails of questions and things like that, even in YouTube and in the website. So I thank you for those questions, because those questions also help me dig deeper for you and learn as well.